The cargo ship Pale Dawn moved through the darkness of space like a tired old animal. Its hull was scratched and worn. Its engines made sounds that worried the crew. But it still flew, and that was enough. Captain Park Tay stood on the bridge with his hands behind his back. He was 53 years old. His hair had turned gray early, and deep lines marked his face. But his eyes were sharp and calm. They had seen too much to show fear anymore. "Captain, we have a problem," said Yunhana from her navigation station. She was younger, maybe 32, with short black hair and a voice that could cut through steel. "Valkyrie patrol ship, coming fast." Tay did not move. He did not even blink. How long? For minutes, maybe less. Behind them, Chief Engineer Kang-hoon looked up from his console. He was a quiet man who rarely spoke, but when he did, people listened. "Should I prepare the cargo for inspection?" "Yes," Tay said. "Hide nothing. Give them nothing to complain about." Hannah made a small sound of anger. "They will complain anyway. They always do." She was right. The Velkar were one of the 12 elder races who controlled the galaxy. They called themselves the Galactic Concord. They made the laws. They controlled the trade routes. They decided who lived well and who suffered. Humans were not on the list of those who lived well. The Valkyrie ship appeared on the main screen. It was 3 times the size of the Pale Dawn. Its weapons glowed with blue light. Its design was sharp and cruel, like the race that built it. "Human vessel," a voice crackled through the speakers. "Stop your engines. Prepare for inspection. Any resistance will be met with destruction." Tay pressed a button. "This is Captain Park Tay of the cargo ship Pale Dawn. We are stopping now. We will cooperate fully." Hannah's hands tightened into fists. Hayen's jaw muscles moved, but he said nothing. The Valkyrie ship locked onto them with a docking beam. Minutes later, heavy boots echoed through the corridors of the Pale Dawn. The Valkyrie soldiers were tall, nearly 7 feet, with gray skin and 4 eyes that glowed yellow. They carried weapons that could burn a hole through the ship's hull. Their commander walked onto the bridge. His name was Lord Morthus. He wore medals on his chest and cruelty on his face. Captain Morthus said the word like it was a joke. "What are you carrying today?" "Medical supplies," Tay answered. "For the station at Haven's Rest, human refugees need them." Morthus smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "Refugees, yes. Your kind does seem to create a lot of those." He walked around the bridge, touching things, showing that he owned this space, that he owned them. "I think we need to inspect your cargo. Make sure you are not hiding anything. You have nothing to hide, Lord Morthus." "Then you will not mind if my soldiers take what they need for their inspection." Tay understood. The Valkyrie would steal their cargo. They would take the medicine meant for sick and dying humans, and there was nothing he could do about it. "Take what you need," Tay said quietly. Morthus laughed. "Good. You humans learn fast." He stepped closer to Tay. "But I think you need to remember something. You need to remember your place." He pointed at the floor. "Kneel." The bridge went silent. Hannah took a step forward, but Tay raised his hand slightly. She stopped. "I said kneel, human." Park Tay, captain of the Pale Dawn, veteran of 30 years in space, lowered himself to his knees on the cold metal floor. Morthus looked down at him with satisfaction. "Better. This is where your kind belongs. On your knees, serving your betters." He turned to his soldiers. "Take what we need. Leave them enough fuel to reach their station. We are not monsters." The soldiers laughed at the joke. They spent an hour loading medical supplies onto their ship. When they left, the Pale Dawn had lost half its cargo. Tay stood up slowly. His knees ached. His heart burned with something he had carried for 50 years. "Captain," Hannah said, her voice shaking with rage, "why do we accept this? Why do we let them treat us like animals?" "Because we must," Tay said. "For how long?" Tay turned to look at her. For a moment, something passed across his face, something she had never seen before. Not much longer. Before she could ask what he meant, a light blinked on his personal console. A message. Encrypted with codes that should not exist. "Leave me," Tay said. "Both of you. I need a moment. Hannah and Hayan exchanged glances, but obeyed. When the bridge was empty, Tay opened the message. He read it 3 times. His face showed nothing, but his hands trembled. The message was short. It contained a date, a location, and 3 words. The stars remember. Tay deleted the message and sat in his captain's chair. He thought about his wife and daughter. He thought about the day 50 years ago when the Concord burned 3 human colonies as punishment for a minor trade violation. 2 billion humans died in fire that fell from the sky. His family was among them. The survivors were forced to sign the submission accords. Humans could not own warships. Humans could not develop weapons. Humans could only serve haul cargo, mine rocks, clean the messes of their betters. For 50 years, humanity had obeyed. They had knelt. They had served. They had smiled while their hearts turned to stone. But stones can be sharpened into blades. Tay looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, hidden in the darkness, something was waiting. Something the Concord did not know about. Something humanity had built in secret, in silence, in patience. Soon he whispered to the ghosts of his wife and daughter. Very soon, the pale dawn continued its journey to Haven's Rest. Its captain sat alone on the bridge, carrying the weight of 50 years of humiliation. But also carrying something else. Hope. Terrible, patient, burning hope. The elder races believed they had broken humanity. They believed humans were cattle. They believed the kneeling was real. They were wrong. And soon, very soon, they would understand their mistake. But by then, it would be far too late. Haven's Rest was not a beautiful place. It was an old mining station that floated in the darkness at the edge of Concord space. The elder races had thrown it away like garbage. Humans had turned it into a home. 50,000 refugees lived there. They came from colonies that had been attacked, taxed into poverty, or simply forgotten. The station was crowded. The air recyclers worked too hard. The food was never enough. But it was theirs. The pale dawn docked at the lower levels, where the old cargo ships came and went. Captain Parktay walked down the ramp and into the busy corridors. People moved around him, carrying boxes, fixing pipes, living their small lives in this floating city of the forgotten. You and Hannah walked beside him. Where are we going, Captain? I have a meeting. With who? Tay did not answer. He turned down a corridor that Hannah had never seen before. Then another. Then another. The station seemed to have secret paths that only some people knew. They stopped at a plain metal door. Tay knocked 3 times, then twice, then once. The door opened. A young girl stood there. She was maybe 17, with tired eyes that had seen too much death. Her name was Osu. She looked at Tay and nodded. They are waiting for you. Inside, the room was larger than it should have been. Someone had knocked down walls to create a meeting space. Screens covered the walls, showing maps of the galaxy, ship movements, and data that scrolled too fast to read. A man stood in the center of the room. He was tall and strong, with a soldier's body and a leader's eyes. Commander Baekyoung was the head of something called the Ember. Officially, the Ember did not exist. Officially, it was just a rumor. A story that humans told each other to feel better. Officially, was a lie. Captain Taeyong said, "Thank you for coming." The message said it was time. Is it true? It is true. Sit down. There is much to discuss. Hannah looked around the room with wide eyes. She saw weapons that humans were not supposed to have. She saw technology that humans were not supposed to understand. She saw people working at stations with the focus of soldiers preparing for war. What is this place? She whispered. A woman walked toward them. She was older, maybe 45, with gray streaks in her hair and the calm face of a scientist. Dr. Shin. Nari had spent her official career studying alien biology for the Concord. Her unofficial career was very different. This is where we have been preparing, Nari said. For 50 years. Since the day they burned our colonies. Hannah shook her head. Preparing for what? We have nothing. We have cargo ships and mining tools. They have warships and armies. Commander Yang smiled. It was a cold smile. That is what they believe. That is what we wanted them to believe. He pressed a button on his console. The main screen changed. It showed a cargo ship. A normal, ugly, tired cargo ship like the pale dawn. Then the image shifted. The cargo ship's hull opened like a flower. Hidden panels slid away. Weapons appeared. Engines that glowed with power that should not exist. Armor that could stop Valkyrie plasma fire. Every human cargo ship in the galaxy, Young said, is a warship. Every mining operation is a weapons factory. Every refugee station is a military base. We have been building in secret. We have been training in silence. We have been waiting. Tay nodded slowly. He had known pieces of this. Now he saw the whole picture. There is more, Dr. Nari said. Her voice became harder. We discovered something. Something the Concord has been hiding from everyone. She brought up new images on the screen. Medical data. Genetic charts. Things that made Hannah feel sick without understanding why. The elder races are dying, Nari explained. Their biology is failing. They have lived too long, bred too carefully. Their genes are falling apart. They need fresh genetic material to survive. What does that mean? Hannah asked. It means they harvest other species. They take their blood, their cells, their DNA. They use younger races to repair their own broken bodies. Nari paused. 17 species have been completely harvested, driven to extinction. Made into medicine for the Concord, the room was silent. Humanity is next, Tay said quietly. It was not a question. They call it the Relocation Initiative. They will announce it soon. They will say they are moving humans to better colonies. In truth, they will take us to harvesting facilities. Our children will become raw material for their survival. Young Sue, who had been standing quietly by the door, spoke up. My family died in the burnings. My mother, my father, my little brothers. Her voice was steady, but her eyes burned. I will not let them take anyone else. Commander Young looked at Captain Tay. We are ready. The fleet is ready. Every human ship, every human station, every human soldier. We have weapons they have never seen. We have technology they do not understand. We have cloaking systems that make our ships invisible to their sensors. Cloaking? Hannah said. That is impossible. Even the elder races cannot cloak ships completely. The elder races did not have 50 years of desperation, Nari said. They did not have people willing to die for a chance at freedom. We created things they said could not exist. Because we had no choice. Yang stepped closer to Tay. We need leaders. Ship captains who know the space lanes, who know the enemy, who can keep calm when the fire starts. I want you to lead the first wave. Tay thought about his wife. He thought about his daughter. He thought about kneeling on the floor of his own ship while Morthus laughed at him. Yes, he said. I will lead. And me, Hannah said quickly. I am with my captain. In the corner, Sue began moving. She had work to do. Messages to deliver. Across the station, across the galaxy, a simple phrase was being whispered from human to human, ship to ship, world to world. The stars remember it was a code. It was a promise. It was a warning that only humans understood. Commander Young looked at the map of the galaxy on his screen. Thousands of human ships were marked in blue. Cargo ships, freighters, transports, all of them hiding weapons. All of them waiting. In 3 days, he said, the Concord will hold their grand assembly. All the elder races will gather. They will vote on our destruction. They will celebrate our end. He smiled again. That cold, patient smile, they will never get the chance. Tay, Hannah, and the others looked at the screen, at the blue dots that covered the galaxy, at the secret fleet that had been built in darkness and silence and rage. The chains were still around their wrists. But the locks had been picked long ago. Now it was time to let the chains fall. The planet Kirith Prime was the heart of the Valkyrie Empire. Its cities were made of black stone and silver metal. Its skies were filled with warships. Its people believed they were the greatest species in the galaxy. Today, all the elder races had come here for the Grand Assembly. Once every 10 years, the rulers of the Galactic Concord gathered to make decisions that would affect billions of lives. Ships from 12 species filled the orbit of Kirith Prime. Flags and banners decorated the Great Hall where the assembly met. High Arbiter Torvand stood at the center of the hall. He was ancient, even by the standards of his long-lived race. His skin was like old leather. His eyes glowed with the cold light of someone who had ruled for centuries. He was the voice of the Concord. His word was law. "My brothers and sisters of the great races," Torvand said, his voice echoing through the hall, "we gather today to discuss a necessary action, the human problem." Around him, representatives from the elder races nodded. The Valkyrie, the Sorthon, the Mechri, and 9 others. All of them powerful. All of them old. All of them afraid of growing weak. "Humans have served their purpose," Torvand continued. "They have hauled our cargo. They have mined our resources. They have cleaned our stations. But now we need them for something more important." Lord Morthus, who sat in the Valkyrie section, smiled. He remembered the human captain who had knelt before him. He remembered the fear in the human's eyes. Cattle, he thought. Nothing but cattle. "The relocation initiative will begin in 30 cycles," Torvand announced. "All human populations will be moved to processing facilities. The genetic material we harvest will extend our lives for another 1,000 years. This is the natural order. The strong survive. The weak serve." The hall erupted in applause. The elder races celebrated their own greatness. They congratulated themselves on their wisdom. They laughed at the thought of the simple humans who would never know what was coming. Then a voice interrupted them. "Excuse me." Everyone stopped. The voice had come from the communication system. A human voice. "Who dares?" Torvand demanded. "My name is Parkte, captain of the human vessel Pale Dawn. I believe you know my ship, Lord Morthus." "You stole our medicine last week?" Morthus stood up, his face twisted with anger. "How did this vermin access our communications?" "Destroy his ship immediately." On the screens that lined the hall, an image appeared. A single human cargo ship floating in orbit above Kirith Prime. It was small. It was old. It was alone among thousands of Concord warships. One ship, someone laughed. One pathetic ship. Have the humans finally gone mad? Captain Tay spoke again. His voice was calm and steady. 50 years ago, you burned our colonies. You killed 2 billion of our people. You made us sign papers that turned us into slaves. You thought you had broken us. Torvand waved his hand with annoyance. Destroy that ship. End this foolishness. You made us kneel, Tay continued. You made us serve. You made us smile while you took everything from us. And all that time, you never asked one simple question. On the bridge of the Pale Dawn, Lieutenant Yoon Hana stood beside her captain. Her hands were steady on the controls. Behind them, Engineer Kong Han was finally smiling. "You never asked," Tay said, "what we were doing while we knelt?" He pressed a button. The Pale Dawn changed. Its old worn hull seemed to melt away like a dream. The ship that appeared in its place was something the Concord had never seen. A warship of beautiful, terrible design. Weapons that glowed with power. Armor that shone like dark silver. Technology that should not exist. The assembly hall went silent. "We were building," Tay said. "We were preparing. We were waiting." And the sky above Kirith Prime began to change. Points of light appeared. 1, 10, 100, 1,000. Ships decloaking from nothing. Human ships. Warships that had been cargo freighters. Battleships that had been mining vessels. Destroyers that had been refugee transports, 10,000 ships. Then more. Across the galaxy. On every Concord world and every system, the same thing was happening. Human ships were revealing their true forms. The cargo fleet that the elder races had laughed at was actually the largest military force the galaxy had ever seen. Lieutenant Hannah spoke into the communication system. Her voice reached every Concord world, every station, every ship. The stars remember what you did. Now the stars answer. In the assembly hall, chaos erupted. Leaders shouted orders. Military commanders tried to contact their fleets, but nothing worked. Their communications were blocked. Their weapons would not fire. Their systems had been infected by human code, planted over decades by workers they had ignored. This is impossible. Lord Morthus screamed. Humans are cattle. They cannot do this. High Arbiter Torvin stared at the screens with ancient eyes. For the first time in centuries, he felt something he had forgotten. Fear, Captain Tay spoke one final time. You have one chance. Surrender unconditionally. Release all records of your crimes. Submit to human judgment. Do this and you will live. Refuse, and we will show you exactly the mercy you showed our children. Torvin's fear turned to rage. He had ruled for 1,000 years. He would not bow to cattle. All ships, attack. Destroy the human fleet. Show them the power of the Concord. Lord Morthus personally ordered his flagship to fire on the pale dawn. A beam of blue plasma shot across space, enough energy to melt a moon. It never arrived. The pale dawn's defense systems activated. The plasma beam was stopped, broken apart, turned to nothing. Human technology that the Concord could not understand. Then the pale dawn fired back. Once, a single shot, the Valkyrie flagship, the pride of their empire. The largest warship in the Concord fleet disappeared. Not destroyed. Not damaged. Simply gone. As if it had never existed. The silence that followed was absolute. In the assembly hall, Morthus fell to his knees. Others followed. The elder races who had ruled the galaxy for millennia, who had burned worlds and harvested species, who had laughed at the kneeling humans, now understood. They had not broken humanity. They had only made them angry, and now it was too late to run. Tay looked at Hannah. She looked back at him. Neither of them smiled. This was not a moment for joy. This was a moment for justice. For the 2 billion dead. For the 17 species that had been erased. For every human who had ever knelt on a cold floor while their masters laughed. Begin Phase 2, Tay said quietly. Across the galaxy, the human fleet moved forward. Not to destroy. Not to conquer. But to collect the debt that had been owed for 50 years. The harvest was over. The reckoning had begun. The war lasted 6 weeks. Some called it a war. Others called it a reckoning. The difference depended on which side you were on. 3 of the elder races surrendered on the first day. They had seen the human fleet. They had watched the Valkyrie flagship disappear. They understood that fighting was pointless. These 3 races gave up their weapons, opened their records, and begged for mercy. They received it. Captain Tay had been clear from the beginning. We are not them. We will never be them. Human soldiers occupied their worlds peacefully. Human judges reviewed their crimes fairly. Those who had killed humans faced trial. Those who had simply followed orders were given a chance to make things right, but 5 races chose to fight. The Valkyrie, the Sorthon, the Makori, the Galther, and the Vesk. They believed their ancient power would save them. They believed their experience would defeat the humans. They were wrong. On the planet Sorthon Prime, Commander Beak, Yang led ground forces against the last enemy stronghold. His soldiers moved through the burning streets with weapons that cut through Sorthon armor like paper. The enemy had numbers. Humans had technology and rage. Commander, one of his officers, reported, "We found something. In the underground levels, you need to see this." Yang followed the officer down into the darkness. What he found made his stomach turn. The facility stretched for miles. Rows and rows of beds. On each bed, a human. Men, women, children. They had tubes in their arms, pulling blood from their bodies. Machines processed the blood, extracting genetic material. Most of the humans were still alive, barely. They already started, Yang whispered. The relocation camps. They already started harvesting us. Young Osu was part of the rescue team. She had trained for 2 years for this. She had thought she was ready. But nothing could prepare her for what she saw. A girl lay on one of the beds. She was maybe 8 years old. Her eyes were open but empty. The machines had taken too much from her. Sue gathered the girl in her arms. "I am here," she said softly. "You are safe now?" "I am here." The girl died in her arms. Another victim. Another name for the memorial. Sue carried the body outside. Her face showed nothing. But inside, her heart became stone. Cold, hard stone that would never forget. Across the galaxy, similar discoveries were being made. The Concorde had been more efficient than anyone knew. Hundreds of facilities, thousands of humans already being processed. Dr. Shinnari worked day and night saving those who could be saved. Documenting the crimes for the trials that would come, she also found the archives. 17 species, she announced in a broadcast to the entire galaxy. The Concorde has harvested 17 intelligent species to extinction. Their names were erased from history. Their cultures were forgotten. Their children became medicine for the elder races. She listed the names of the dead species. Names that no one had heard in centuries. Names that deserved to be remembered. Humanity was to be the 18th, Nari continued. But we will be the last. Never again will a species die to feed the greed of another. Species that had been neutral joined humanity's cause. The evidence was too clear. The crimes were too terrible. Even races that had feared the Concorde now stood against it. The fighting continued. But the outcome was certain. Engineer Kanghan led a team that captured the Central Concorde Archive on the planet Makori. For the first time, the full history of the elder races was revealed. Thousands of years of conquest. Hundreds of species enslaved. The galaxy had been a farm, and the Concorde had been the farmers. They kept records of everything, Hayne reported to Captain Tay. Every harvest, every extinction, every lie. They were proud of what they did. Right. Tay read through the files. His hands did not shake anymore. He had no more rage to spare. Only cold determination. Make sure every species in the galaxy sees these records, he ordered. Let them know what the Concorde really was. The final battle came at Velkar, the ancient capital of the Concorde. Here in a fortress built 10,000 years ago, the last leaders of the elder races made their stand. High Arbiter Torvin refused to surrender. Lord Morthus stood beside him. "We are the masters of this galaxy," Torvin declared. "We will not bow to cattle." The human fleet surrounded the planet. 100,000 warships. The largest force ever assembled in galactic history, Captain Tay gave the order. Begin the assault. The battle was brutal, but short. Concorde defenses that had stood for millennia fell in hours. Human soldiers fought through the ancient halls of the fortress. Room by room, floor by floor, Lord Morthus was captured, trying to escape through a secret passage. He was brought before Commander Young in chains. "Please," Morthus begged. "I was only following orders. I did not want to hurt humans. Please show mercy." Young looked at him with eyes that had seen the harvesting facilities. "You made a man kneel on his own ship. You stole medicine from dying children. You laughed while you did it. I am sorry. I am sorry." "Yes," Young said. "You are." Morthus was taken to stand trial with the others. High Arbiter Torvin was found in his throne room. He had not tried to run. He sat on his ancient seat, looking at the human soldiers with contempt. "You think you have one?" he said to Captain Tay when they met. "But you have only delayed the inevitable. We have ruled for 10,000 years. We will rule again." Tay shook his head. "No, you will not." The trials were held on Earth, not the original Earth, which had been poisoned centuries ago, but New Earth. A colony that had become humanity's new home. Representatives from every species in the galaxy watched as the leaders of the Concorde faced justice. The evidence was overwhelming. The testimonies were heartbreaking. Survivors of the harvesting facilities spoke of their suffering. The record showed every crime in terrible detail. Torvin was found guilty of genocide. Morthus was found guilty of genocide. All the leaders of the Concord were found guilty. Some people wanted them to suffer. Some people wanted revenge. But Captain Tay insisted on something different. "We will execute them," he said. "But we will do it humanely, quickly, without pain. They deserve pain." Someone shouted from the crowd. Tay turned to face the crowd. His voice was tired but firm. "Yes, they do. But we do not deserve to become them. We are human. We are better than this. Let them die knowing that even in their last moment, we showed them more mercy than they ever showed us." Executions were carried out the next day. Quick, clean, final, and then it was over. The Galactic Concord, which had ruled for 10,000 years, which had burned worlds and harvested species, which had laughed at kneeling humans, was finished. The galaxy was free, but freedom was only the beginning. 1 year had passed since the decloaking. 1 year since the human fleet had appeared in the skies of Kirith Prime. 1 year since the galaxy had changed forever. The Galactic Concord was gone. In its place stood something new. The Open Assembly met on a space station built in neutral territory. Here, every species had a voice. Every planet had a vote. There were no masters and no slaves. Only equals. It had not been easy. Building something new never is. The surviving elder races struggled with their fall. Some accepted their guilt and worked to make amends. They paid reparations. They returned stolen territories. They helped rebuild the worlds they had destroyed. These races found a place in the new order. Others burned with resentment. They gathered in dark corners and whispered about revenge. Human intelligence watched them carefully. The fleet remained ready. Peace was real, but it was not foolish. Commander Beekyoung became the first human speaker of the Open Assembly. He stood before representatives from hundreds of species on the day of his first address. The chamber was silent, waiting. "We were broken," Young began. "We were scattered. We were silenced. But we never forgot who we were." He paused, looking around the room at faces of every shape and color. "We are humanity. We bend. We endure. And when pushed too far, we push back. Let this galaxy remember, there is no submission that cannot be broken. There is no cruelty that goes unanswered. And there are no stars that do not hear the cries of the innocent." The chamber erupted in applause, not just from humans, from every species that had suffered under the Concord, every species that had been afraid, every species that now dared to hope. Dr. Shinari continued her work. She led a new institute dedicated to genetic restoration. Using the Concord's own technology, her team worked to bring back species that had nearly been erased. It would take centuries. Some species were too far gone to save, but others could be restored, one cell at a time. "We cannot undo the past," Nari said in an interview, "but we can build a better future. Every species that lives again is a victory over those who tried to destroy them." Young Osu was no longer so young. She was 19 now, a veteran of battles that had aged her beyond her years, but she had found peace in an unexpected place. After the war, she had adopted the orphans from the harvesting facilities, the children who had no one else. She took them to a colony world where the air was clean and the grass was green. She built a home with her own hands. Today, she sat in a garden while the children played around her. They were laughing. It was a sound she had not heard enough in her life. "Tell us a story," one of the boys asked. He was 7 years old and missing his front teeth. "What kind of story?" "A story about heroes. About people who fight monsters." "Shh." She gathered the children around her and began to speak. "Once upon a time, there were people who had lost everything. Their homes were burned. Their families were taken. They were forced to bow down and serve those who hurt them. Everyone thought they were defeated. Everyone thought they were broken. The children listened with wide eyes. But they were not broken. They were just waiting. And when the time came, they stood up. They remembered who they were. They fought back against the monsters. And they won." "Is the story true?" a little girl asked. Sue looked at her. She thought of her mother and father and brothers, lost in the burnings. She thought of the girl who had died in her arms in the harvesting facility. She thought of all the names on the memorial wall. "Yes," she said softly. "It is true." Captain Parkday had retired from active duty. He was too old for war, he said. Too tired for speeches. He wanted only one thing now. He traveled to New Earth alone. He took a ground car to the outskirts of the capital city. There, on a hill overlooking the sea, stood the memorial of the burning. It was a wall. Just a wall. But on that wall were carved 2 billion names. Every human who had died in the colony burnings 50 years ago. Every mother. Every father. Every child. Every name remembered. Tay walked along the wall until he found what he was looking for. 2 names. Side by side, Park Mina, his wife. Park Una, his daughter. They had been on the colony of Haven's Grace when the Concorde ships arrived. They had been visiting family. They never came home. Tay touched their names with trembling fingers. The stone was cold and smooth. "I am sorry it took so long," he whispered. "We were not ready. We could not save you." The wind blew softly across the hill. But we remembered. We never forgot. We never forgave. And now they are gone. All of them. They cannot hurt anyone ever again. He stood there for a long time, talking to ghosts, telling them about the war, about the trials, about the new galaxy that was being built from the ashes of the old. "I will see you soon," he said finally. "But not yet. There is still work to do." He walked back to his car. An old man who had carried the weight of billions on his shoulders. An old man who had finally set that weight down, Lieutenant Yoon Hannah. Now Captain Hannah commanded the Pale Dawn. The ship had been repaired and upgraded, but she had kept its name. It was a good name. A name that meant something. She took it on patrol through the former Concorde territories. Not to threaten. Not to intimidate. Just to remind people that humans were watching. That humans would always be watching. "Captain," her new navigation officer said, "I am detecting something strange." At the edge of the system, Hannah looked at the readings. A small object. Moving slowly. Not broadcasting any signals. "What is it?" "Unknown. It does not match any species in our database." Hannah felt a chill run down her spine. The galaxy was large. Humanity had only explored a small part of it. There were other things out there. Other civilizations. Other powers. "Do not approach," she ordered. "Just observe." The object floated through space. It was a probe of some kind, covered in symbols that no one had ever seen. It seemed to be scanning, learning, watching. Then it turned and flew away faster than anything Hannah had ever seen. In moments, it was gone. Somewhere far beyond the galaxy that humanity had just freed, the probe returned to its makers. It uploaded everything it had learned. The history of the Concorde, the oppression of humanity, the rising, the war, the victory, the mercy. The beings who received this data studied it carefully. They had been watching the galaxy for a long time. They had seen the Concorde rise and fall. They had seen species come and go. But they had never seen anything like this. A species that had been crushed, but did not break. A species that had been enslaved, but did not surrender. Species that had won, absolutely, but did not become monsters. They added a new entry to their database. Species. Human. Classification. Do not provoke recommended action. Avoid contact. Observe from distance. Do not underestimate. The probe's makers looked at each other with something like respect. And something like fear. The stars were very large. The universe was very old. Many species had risen and fallen across the endless centuries. But these humans were different. These humans remembered, and somewhere on a colony world, in a garden full of laughing children, a young woman named Osu finished her story. "The end," she said. "What happened next?" The children asked. Sue looked up at the stars that were beginning to appear in the evening sky. So many stars. So many worlds. So many stories waiting to be written. "The next part has not happened yet," she said. "We are still writing it. All of us. Together." The children nodded, satisfied with this answer. And the stars, silent witnesses to all that had passed, continued to shine. They remembered they would always remember.